The winter wind rolled over Willow Creek like a long, tired sigh, brushing across the empty main street and rattling the wooden signs that hung over the stores. The small frontier town had always been quiet, but after the sheriff's sudden death, the silence felt even heavier. People spoke in soft voices now. Doors shut earlier. Lanterns burned lower. Every sound in the night made families sit up in fear. Hannah Miller, the late sheriff's widow, lived a few miles outside town in a weather-beaten homestead that seemed older than the land itself. It stood on a patch of prairie that looked endless, with dry grass reaching the horizon. Her husband had been known as a strict man, brave but distant. A person who protected the town, yet seldom protected his own home from loneliness. When he died on patrol during a snowstorm, the town mourned him. But Hannah was left in a difficult place, alone, burdened with debts, and living far from any neighbors. Every morning she walked outside, wrapped in her husband's old coat, and looked at the fences that leaned, the barn roof that sagged, and the field that needed tending. She was a strong woman, but strength could only carry her so far. She could not repair broken boards alone. She could not handle strangers who might wander across her land. She could not face the cold nights without a sense of safety. The town council discussed her situation for days. They spoke about her debts, her land, her vulnerability, and the danger of outlaws who had become bolder since the sheriff's passing. At last they reached a decision that many believed was for her good. But not a single person asked her opinion first. They needed someone to protect her, someone dependable, someone who lived quietly and kept to himself, someone strong enough to guard the homestead. That man was Cole Bennett. Cole had arrived in Willow Creek 3 years earlier. Riding alone with nothing but a saddlebag and an old chestnut horse, he worked ranch jobs quietly, spoke only when needed, and avoided trouble. People respected him because he did his work well, never complained, and never missed a promise. But they also whispered about him, wondering why he avoided friendships, and why he never talked about his past. He was the kind of man who carried storms. Behind his eyes, storms that no one dared bring up. So when the council met him in the saloon one cold afternoon, his expression did not change much, even when they told him Hannah needed a husband for protection. The room was dim. The floor creaked under their boots. The wood stove crackled softly in the corner. Cole listened, jaw tight, arms folded. "You want me to marry her?" he asked quietly. "It is for safety," said Mr. Parsons, one of the older councilmen. "She lives too far from town. She can't manage everything alone." Cole looked away, staring at the dust on the wooden floor. He cared about safety. He cared about helping others. But marriage, forcing someone into marriage, felt wrong to him. "What does Hannah think?" he asked. The men hesitated. Their silence told him everything. Cole stood abruptly, pushing the chair back with a low scrape. "I won't trap her in a marriage she don't want." "Shh. She already agreed," Mr. Parsons said quickly. She said she didn't want trouble for the town. She said if this is the only way to protect her land, she'll accept it." Cole closed his eyes for a long moment, breathing slowly. He could imagine how Hannah must have felt cornered, pressured, duty-bound. She was a widow, grieving and tired. And now the town asked her to give up her freedom too. He rubbed the back of his neck, sighing. If she truly agreed, then I'll do my duty. Nothing more. Nothing less. 2 days later, the wedding took place in the small town church. It was simple, quiet, and felt less like a celebration and more like a responsibility. Hannah stood in a modest dress, her hands trembling slightly as she held a small bouquet of prairie flowers. Cole stood beside her, tall and silent, his hat held respectfully in his hands. They exchanged vows in soft voices. The preacher spoke kindly, though his words felt heavy, like stones being set into place. Hannah looked down the whole time, afraid to meet Cole's eyes. Cole kept his gaze steady, but his expression stayed controlled, as if he was trying hard not to make her uncomfortable. Afterward, townsfolk congratulated them politely, but even their smiles were careful. Everyone knew this was not a marriage born from choice. When the ceremony ended, Cole helped Hannah onto the wagon filled with her few belongings. The sky was pale, the wind cold, and the prairie stretched endlessly around them. The ride home was quiet. Neither knew what to say. Hannah finally spoke first, her voice small. I'm sorry the town put this on you." Cole shook his head. "You don't owe me an apology." "I didn't want to be a burden," she said, fingers twisting the fabric of her dress. "You're not," he answered calmly, but the silence that followed felt uncertain. Like two strangers sharing a space that suddenly felt too small. When they reached the homestead, Cole helped unload her things. He moved with slow, respectful motions, careful not to touch her without asking. Hannah noticed it. The way he created a small distance around her. The way he kept his voice low and gentle. The way his eyes softened when she looked at him by accident. The house was cold and dim when they entered. Cole set her bags down and looked around with a quiet sigh. "I'll chop wood. Get the fire going. You don't have to do everything today," she said softly. "I don't mind." And he didn't. He chopped wood until his coat grew dusty and his shirt clung to his back. He fixed a loose board on the porch that had bothered Hannah for months. He even tightened the barn door hinge before sunset. Hannah watched from inside, feeling something she did not expect relief. Cole moved like a man who knew hardship. A man who didn't judge. A man who wasn't trying to take anything from her. Yet she still felt uncomfortable. Not because of Cole, but because she feared he felt trapped. And she did not want anyone feeling trapped beside her that night. They sat at the small wooden table for their first meal together. The fire crackled, filling the room with warmth. Hannah served stew she had prepared earlier, and Cole thanked her quietly before eating. They spoke only in short sentences. "I'm grateful for your help today," she said. After a while, "You don't need to thank me," Cole replied, spoon pausing halfway to his mouth. "This is our home now. We'll take care of it together." His words surprised her. Not because they were warm, but because they were honest. There was no force behind them, no pity, just calm sincerity. Later, when it was time to sleep, Cole stood near the stairs. "I'll take the spare room," he said gently. "You take your room," she nodded quickly, relieved by his respect. But when Cole reached his room, he paused, hand on the doorframe. He looked back and added, "If you need anything. If you feel unsafe, I'll be right here." Hannah didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Cole." That night, Hannah lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. She listened to the wind tapping against the window. The old house creaking softly and her own heartbeat reminding her she was no longer alone. The bed felt different. The air felt different. Everything felt different. Meanwhile, in the spare room, Cole sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, deep in thought. He wondered if he had done the right thing. He wondered if Hannah truly wanted him here, or if she merely accepted him out of fear. He wondered what kind of life they could build from something that started with pressure instead of understanding. But he promised himself one thing. He would never make her feel trapped again. He would give her space, respect, and protection. Nothing else. Days passed and a quiet rhythm began between them. They worked side by side, though they rarely spoke. Cole repaired what he could around the property. Hannah cooked, cleaned, and cared for the animals. Slowly, the house felt less like two separate worlds and more like one peaceful space. One evening, a strong windstorm swept across the prairie. The air howled, and the sky turned dark. Hannah ran outside to check the chickens when a loud crack of thunder startled her. The wind tore at her shawl, whipping the fabric around her face. Cole rushed out from the barn. Hannah, inside. Now. She clung to the basket of eggs, stumbling as the wind pushed her. Cole reached her, placed a steady hand on her back, and guided her safely inside the barn. The door slammed shut behind them. Inside, the wind roared outside the wooden walls. Out. But the barn was warm with hay and lantern light. Cole held her arm, steadying her. "You all right?" he asked gently. She nodded, but her breath trembled. "Thank you. I didn't expect the wind to turn like that." Cole's eyes softened. "Storms can fool you. They look quiet until they're not." For the first time since their marriage, Hannah looked at him without fear or distance. She saw not a stranger forced upon her, but a man who cared. A man who stepped into danger to help her without thinking twice. They stood there in the glow of the lantern, the storm hammering outside. It was the first moment they truly saw each other, not as strangers, not as forced partners, but as two lonely souls learning how to share the same world. This moment, small and quiet, was the beginning of everything that would follow. The storm faded slowly through the night, leaving the prairie washed clean by morning light. When Hannah stepped outside the barn the next day, the air smelled of wet earth and new grass. The sky was wide and clear again, as if the storm had never existed at all. She pulled her shawl closer around her shoulders and watched Cole as he inspected the broken branches and scattered debris across the yard. He worked calmly, without hurry, picking up fallen boards and tying loose ropes. His movements were steady and grounded, like someone who had weathered many storms before. Hannah admired that about him, his ability to remain firm no matter what the world threw at him. She hesitated before speaking. "Thank you for helping me last night, in the storm." Cole looked up, brushing dust from his hands. "It wasn't a trouble, but you didn't have to risk yourself," she said quietly. He shook his head. "When you care about somebody's safety, you don't think about risk." The words surprised Hannah. They came out naturally, without him even realizing their weight. She opened her mouth to reply, but closed it again, unsure what to say. Since their unplanned marriage, their conversations had been polite and short, but now something felt different, warmer, gentler, as if the storm had swept away some invisible wall between them in the following days. Cole spent more time around the homestead than usual, not because he was forced to, but because he wanted to make sure Hannah never felt alone or unprotected. He repaired the barn roof, set new fences, and even fixed the cracked porch steps that had bothered her for months. Hannah tried to help, but Cole always took the heavier jobs. "You don't have to do everything yourself," she told him one morning, as he carried a load of firewood to the shed. Cole set the logs down, wiping his brow. "I know, but it helps me keep my mind steady." She tilted her head. "You have a lot on your mind?" He hesitated, eyes drifting toward the distant hills. "Everyone has something on their mind. I just choose not to speak of mine." Hannah respected that. She knew pain did not always need to be shared aloud to show her gratitude. She cooked hearty meals for both of them, making the small house warmer and more alive. The scent of fresh bread filled the kitchen. She repaired curtains, washed linens, and kept everything tidy. Slowly, the homestead came back to life, not as a lonely widow's home, but as a place shared by two quiet souls. Learning to live together, they still didn't talk much during meals. Yet the silence no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt natural, like to people who understood each other without needing too many words. One evening, as they ate vegetable stew by the fire, Hannah spoke gently. "I want to thank you for the work you've done. I know this marriage didn't start the way either of us wished." Cole set his spoon down. "We can't change how it started, but we can choose what it becomes." His words settled between them like soft warmth. Hannah smiled a little, a small but real smile. For the first time, Cole saw a hint of light in her eyes, light that grief had stolen for too long. But their calm was tested sooner than expected. Late one afternoon, Hannah was outside feeding the chickens when she saw 3 men riding toward the homestead. Dust rose under their horses' hooves, and their postures were tense and aggressive. Hannah's heartbeat quickened. She recognized them and her late husband had once mentioned. Men who had been involved in trouble around the county. Men who believed he kept certain documents that could expose their wrongdoing. The riders stopped near the front gate. One of them, a tall man with a rough beard, called out, "Where's your husband, Widow Miller?" Hannah stiffened. "He passed away." "We know that," the bearded man said with a sneer. "We also know he left something important behind. We're here for it." Hannah swallowed hard. "I don't know what you mean." Another man stepped forward. "Don't lie to us. The sheriff kept papers. Papers that belong to us." Hannah's hands trembled slightly. "I truly don't have anything." Before they could press further, the barn door swung open, and Cole walked out. His shoulders were squared, his boots firm against the dirt. "What do you want here?" he asked, voice calm but cold. The men exchanged looks. We asked the widow a question. It ain't your concern, it is now, Cole replied. She's my wife. The statement was simple, but it carried weight. Hannah felt a strange warmth in her chest, not fear. Not embarrassment, just a quiet, steady sense of protection. The bearded man laughed. We're not here for a fight, cowboy. We just want what belongs to us. Nothing here belongs to you, Cole said firmly. The second rider leaned forward on his horse. We'll be back. And next time, we expect answers. The men rode away, leaving a cloud of dust and a heavier cloud of tension. Hannah's breath came out shaky. Cole walked to her and gently placed his hand on her forearm. You all right? She nodded weakly. I didn't expect them to come back. They won't touch you, Cole said, voice steady as a rock. But they sounded serious. Let them come, he replied with quiet strength. They'll go home disappointed. Hannah looked at him with new eyes. There was something different about Cole. Now something protective, almost fierce, but still gentle toward her. Thank you, she whispered. You don't need to thank me, he repeated. I won't let anyone trouble you. That evening, Cole stayed outside longer than usual. He walked the entire property line, checking the fences, looking for weak spots where trouble could slip in. Hannah watched from the window as he lit a lantern and placed it on a tall post near the barn. It cast a warm, glowing circle of light over the yard. He was making sure she felt safe. Moved by his care, Hannah stepped outside with a cup of warm tea. The air was cool, the prairie crickets singing softly in the distance. You should rest, she said, handing him the cup. Cole accepted it with a slight nod. I'll rest when I know everything's all right. She sat beside him on the porch steps. They watched the lantern light sway gently in the wind. Do you think they'll come back soon? She asked. They might, he admitted. But I'll be ready. Hannah hesitated. You don't have to guard the whole night. You need sleep too. Cole took a slow sip of tea. Sleep comes easy for me. It's peace that takes work. Hannah looked at him closely. You've been through things, haven't you? Cole didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted toward the dark horizon. I've lost people. That's all. His voice was soft, but heavy with unspoken memories. Hannah's heart tightened. She knew that kind of pain too well, the kind that sits inside a person quietly, becoming part of their shadow. I'm sorry, she said. Cole gave a faint, grateful nod. You don't need to be. Life teaches everyone in its own way. After a moment, she placed her hand gently on his arm, just a light touch, but meaningful. You're not alone anymore, Cole. Not here. Looked down at her hand, then at her face. Something softened in his eyes. Something warm and unexpected. For a man who avoided closeness, her simple gesture touched him deeply. He cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice steady. You should get inside. It's cold. Hannah nodded, though she stayed beside him a moment longer. In the quiet, she whispered, I feel safe with you. Those words struck him harder than a blow. No one had spoken to him like that in years. He swallowed. I'm glad, she rose slowly, walking toward the door. But before she entered, she turned back. I know we didn't choose this marriage, she said softly, but I'm glad you're here. Cole's heart tightened with emotion he didn't show on his face. Good night, Hannah. Good night, Cole. But sleep did not come easily for either of them that night. Hannah lay awake, thinking of the men who had come, feeling both fear and gratitude, for without Cole, she would have felt helpless. She realized she trusted him more than she expected. Cole stayed awake too, sitting near the window in his room, keeping watch through the night. The lantern outside burned low, casting long shadows that danced across the yard. He thought about the threat, but his mind kept drifting to Hannah, her kindness, her quiet strength, the way her hand had rested on his arm. Something new was growing between them. Something gentle and careful, and though neither spoke it aloud, they both knew the truth. This marriage was no longer just a duty, it was slowly becoming something real. The next morning brought a peaceful sunrise, soft and golden over the prairie. But the calm outside did not quiet the thoughts inside the homestead. Cole moved through the house with steady hands but an alert mind. Knowing the three men from yesterday would not stay away for long, Hannah sensed his concern and felt her own heart heavy with worry. She was sweeping the porch when he stepped up beside her. I'll ride to town today, he said. Tell the marshal what happened. Her eyes widened. Will that make things worse? Maybe, Cole replied honestly. But it might stop them from trying again. Hannah looked down at the broom, then back at him. Be careful, he nodded. Always. Before he mounted his horse, Hannah handed him a small cloth pouch. There are biscuits inside. In case you get hungry on the way. Cole accepted the pouch as carefully as if she'd handed him something fragile. Thank you, Hannah. She smiled softly. Come back safe. Those words followed him like a warm echo as he rode toward town. In Willow Creek, Cole found the marshal outside the jailhouse. The marshal was an older man with sharp eyes, respected for his fairness. Cole explained everything: the sudden visit, the threats, the demand for papers they believed the late sheriff had hidden. The marshal listened carefully, running a hand along his gray beard. I know those men, he said. Trouble follows them like dust. They've been involved in some bad dealings, and the sheriff was gathering evidence. If they think that evidence is at your place, they won't let go of the idea. Cole's jaw tightened. So Hannah's in danger because of something her husband kept hidden? Looks like it, the marshal said. I'll ride out with you. We'll put this to rest, Cole nodded. He didn't like dragging law trouble to the homestead, but protecting Hannah was more important than anything else. Back at the homestead, Hannah waited anxiously. She tried to keep busy washing tablecloths, preparing lunch, feeding the animals, but her thoughts kept drifting toward Cole. She realized, with a mix of fear and surprising warmth, that his safety meant something to her now. Something deep. When she finally saw two riders approaching from the distance, she felt her breath catch. Cole returned with the marshal beside him. Relief washed through her like gentle rain after drought. Cole dismounted first. Everything all right here? He asked. She nodded. Yes. I'm glad you're back. The marshal tipped his hat politely. Ma'am, we're here to settle this trouble once and for all. Hannah invited them inside. The house felt small with 3 people, but somehow comforting, like a shelter where trust could grow. Cole stood near the doorway, alert and guarded. The marshal sat at the table, examining a few old boxes Hannah said belonged to her late husband. Are these the sheriff's things? The marshal asked gently. Hannah placed a hand over the wooden lid. Yes, I never opened them. I was going to, but it felt too painful. Cole stepped forward. You don't have to look. I can know, Hannah said softly. I want to understand why those men came. The slow, steady breath. She lifted the lid. Inside were letters, records, and a few torn documents. The marshal examined them carefully, sorting through the papers. These are the ones they want. The marshal finally said, pulling out a stack of folded notes. These show the men were involved in illegal business. The sheriff must have been planning to take action. Cole's eyes darkened. So they want these gone, yes, the marshal said. But now that I have them, the law has the upper hand. Hannah let out a long, shaky breath. Will they come again? Maybe, the marshal admitted. But if they do, I'll be ready. And so will Cole. Cole placed a reassuring hand on Hannah's shoulder. You're safe now. The warmth of his touch eased her fear. She nodded, trusting him completely. The marshals stayed the night at the homestead, just in case the men returned. But the Prairie stayed quiet. The next morning, he rode back to town with the documents, promising justice. For several days, peace returned. Hannah and Cole worked side by side, repairing fences, tending to animals, and cleaning the yard after the storm. Their bond deepened quietly, like roots growing deeper beneath the soil. One evening, after a long day of work, Hannah found Cole sitting on the porch steps, watching the sunset. The orange sky stretched endlessly, warming the land with soft light. She sat beside him. The home looks better now. Cole nodded. It does. You've brought life into it. Hannah tilted her head. We both did, Cole. He glanced at her, surprised by the gentle honesty in her voice. She smiled softly, and for the first time, he fully returned the smile. They sat in silence for a long moment, the warm breeze brushing past them like a quiet song. Hannah wanted to speak, but hesitated. Cole sensed it. What's on your mind? He asked. She folded her hands in her lap. Cole, can I be honest with you? always. She took a slow breath. When we married, I was scared. Not because of you. Because I felt like my life was no longer mine. I didn't want to be a burden to you. Cole looked down, his voice low. I never felt you were a burden, Hannah continued. But now, after everything you've done, I don't feel forced anymore. I feel safe and grateful and comfortable with you. Cole swallowed, his heart tightening in his chest. I'm glad, Hannah. She met his eyes. Are you happy here? With me? He looked at her fully now. No walls, no distance. More than I thought I would be. Those simple words warmed her more than the sunset behind them, but peace wasn't finished testing them. 2 days later, just after noon, the three troublemakers returned riding fast, anger burning in their eyes. Hannah saw them first and rushed inside to call Cole. Cole, they're here. He grabbed his coat and stepped onto the porch. Positioning himself between Hannah and the oncoming riders, the bearded man shouted, Where are the papers? The marshal took them, didn't he? Cole stayed calm. The marshal has them. It's over. No, the man growled. It's not over until we get those papers back. Cole stepped forward, tall and unafraid. You won't get them, and you're not welcome here. One man reached for something in his saddlebag, and Cole's stance sharpened instantly. But before anything escalated, horses thundered from the east. The marshal rode in with 2 deputies. You men are under arrest, he called out. Drop everything and come quietly. The troublemakers hesitated, but they knew they were outnumbered. Slowly, they surrendered. Hannah watched from the porch, heart pounding as the deputies bound the men's hands. The marshal tipped his hat to Cole. Good thing I expected them to try something, he said. They won't bother you again. As the group rode back to town, Hannah stepped closer to Cole, relief washing over her. It's finally over, she whispered. Cole nodded. You're safe. But Hannah shook her head gently. Not just because of the marshal, because of you. Later that evening, the prairie fell quiet again. The golden light of dusk painted the world in soft shades. Hannah and Cole stood near the barn, checking on the animals after the commotion. When they finished, Hannah turned to him, her expression gentle but full of emotion. Cole, she said softly, I've been thinking about something. He waited quietly for her to continue. Our marriage started because we were forced to accept it. But now, I want to choose it. Cole felt his breath catch. Hannah, she stepped closer, close enough that he could see the warmth in her eyes. I want to stay married to you. Not because the town wants it. Not because I'm afraid. But because I feel safe and cared for. And alive again. Cole's voice was quiet, almost shaken. Hannah, I choose this too. I choose you. The prairie wind blew softly around them, carrying the scent of grass and evening warmth. Hannah lifted her hand and rested it over Cole's heart. Do you really mean it? She whispered. I've never meant anything more, he said honestly. Their feelings, buried under duty and caution for so long, finally rose to the surface. Cole lifted his hand, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face with gentle care. Hannah leaned closer, her heartbeat steady and sure. Cole lowered his head slightly, and in the golden light of the prairie, they shared their first real kiss, gentle, soft, full of hope and promise. No fear, no distance, just 2 hearts choosing each other freely. The prairie no longer felt silent. It felt warm, alive and filled with the beginning of a new life, one they would build together. Not from force, but from trust, safety, and a growing, quiet love.